Hi everyone. So today we are going to talk about digital transformation. So the objective today is to learn how these businesses approach transformation and innovate to stay ahead of their competition or in the industry in general. So Johnny, I would like to start with you first. As a social enterprise with so many different verticals, like groceries, insurance, how did NTUC undergo digital transformation? What was your journey like?
Sure. Definitely, we're still in the very early stages, I would say. But I think if we dial the clock back maybe 3 years ago, where NTUC Enterprise was, it was basically the history of NTUC, as you probably know even better than me, has been that over the last 30, 40 years, just because of macroeconomics, the businesses that NTUC has been growing and growing and growing. Every year, close your eyes, open the eyes again, more revenue, more money, right? But something happened 3, 4 years ago, which is that for the first time in the history of one of our major businesses, we opened the eyes, and then instead of revenues going up, they actually dipped. And then when we looked into the reasons for that, it was basically because now people were shopping differently. Instead of, let's say, in this particular case, buying groceries at the store, now as a portion that was already noticeable, I started to shop online. And then so one of the key foresights that the top leadership at NTUC had when they saw this is, wow, if we are not prepared for the future, we'll become irrelevant. And if NTUC and the group of social enterprises becomes irrelevant, we will not be able to carry out our key social mission to the Singapore society. So therefore, from everyone, from the chairman to the key board members to the senior management staff, they actually took it upon themselves to strengthen the group of social enterprises. And the first thing that they did, they actually were able to gather significant amount of funding. So with the help of the Singapore Labour Foundation, they set up a $100 million fund to then say, okay, this is what we want to invest as a first tranche to carry on this digital transformation. So they put in the money, they gather the resources. And then secondly, then they started to hire some of the people. So a little bit over a year ago, I was brought in to help be one of the leaders in this digital transformation, and then to define what does it mean for us to be digital transformation, to embark in this digital transformation journey, right? And so that's just about basically strategy. So we need to understand what is our strategy, what is our roadmap, what is our organization, right? And what are the business metrics and the organizational metrics that are going to chart our process. And then from then on, it's just building, right? And so, yes, we are still at the early stages, but fortunately, we already have some of the early results that we're seeing in terms of the impact here.
Can you share one example of the results?
Sure. So I'm posted at Fair Price also. So even though all the various social enterprises, their digital organizations report into me, I'm also the operating head at Fair Price. And I oversee not only the technology side, but also the business side for Fair Price Online. And one of the key things that we've been able to do in terms of strengthening our business versus the other online grocery player is that we have looked at what we can do, and then now we're offering this new business model, which is called fulfillment from store, which is that instead of waiting for your grocery to be delivered from a central warehouse somewhere, you actually can get it delivered from the Fair Price nearby you. And this actually opens up a lot of things. Opens up not only same day, even sometimes 2-hour delivery. Get that. You also get fresh. You know that your vegetables or your meat has not been sitting in a warehouse for God knows how many days. It's the same fresh product that you would get when you're in the store. Actually, this is a significant change. And of course, we enable that through technology that is not only to the end consumer, but actually all the way to the back end, how we do the supply chain, how do we communicate in the organization. Anyways, so fortunately, Fair Price Online already has been growing. We've been growing close to 85% market share, 85% year-on-year growth, and we've been increasing market share already.
Thanks, Johnny. Nadia, over to you. Insurance is one of the oldest form of business, and there are so many insurance companies these days, even like digital insurance companies as well coming up. Can you talk us through like SCOR's transformation?
Sure, thanks, Shawn. Actually, SCOR is a reinsurance,
Yeah.
and I bet not many people know what that is. So let me get to that. Let's talk about insurance.
Yeah.
You rightly said, insurance is one of the oldest industry, probably in existence today. In the modern form, it started in the Lloyd's market in the late 19th centuries. And in the older form, in terms of church or mutual help group, that's century, or 2,000 years old. But insurance, I always joking, is one of the industry, neither inside or outside, anyone get excited about. So you may get excited, waking up today thinking about buy a new iPad or Apple Watch or a new game, or even a TV gets you some excitement. No one gets out of bed thinking what kind of insurance I will purchase today. So that's from a consumer perspective. And also, to deal with the insurance company often associated with some very unhappy incidences. Everyone would prefer to avoid the occasion to file a claim, getting ill or, family member passed away, so on and so forth, all very sad incidences. So it's hard to really get, consumers really want to think about insurance. And from the insurance industry itself also, so it's because it's complicated industry. It involves, especially life insurance. You are design a product that you need to deliver the liability maybe in 30 years' time, 50 years' time. So it does require a lot of technicians, So I'm an actuary by training. Again, I don't expect you to know a lot about being an actuary, but, it's a mathematician by training, but I have to do loads of modeling to make sure we have sufficient capital to pay claim in 30 years, 50 years. So from inside insurance industry, you also have people, mind my words, pretty boring. They look at numbers, the crunchy numbers, look at some model, and so on and so forth. So it's a very unique industry in a way. No one gets excited. Consumer doesn't get excited. People working insurance come not excited, and as we made plenty of jokes about insurance salesmen, right? So, and they have to sell pretty hard because no one wants to buy it. So you have very aggressive, traditional the image of insurance agents. I'm sure we all have our own image in our head, so I won't challenge all of us to describe that, but you know what I mean. So this is the situation the industry is facing, so insurance. And I need to touch on SCOR a little bit, because SCOR is an organization. I head up the global distribution or innovation part of SCOR. SCOR is a reinsurer. Okay, so to explain what a reinsurance company is, it's actually a reinsurance company are the specialized specialist in risk. So all the insurance company will reinsure their risk to a reinsurer, because reinsurer typically global, big, with lots of capital, so they will be able to diversify risk a lot better. Like income or NTUC, they will have their reinsurance partners, typically global, so they diversify risk. So I already described how challenging insurance industry is. And you come to reinsurance, even further removed. And if you think insurance, at least you have technician, you have a salesman, you have marketing, you have PR and communication. Reinsurer typically is only technicians, a very, very specialized. So it is an industry or organization, if I may say, it's very, very hard to find agility, energy, innovation, because by nature we are very careful with risk, and we have to be very, very specialized in what we do, know what we're doing. And it's an industry, really, I found when I joined the reinsurance industry, which I've been in this industry for 20 years, you wonder what you are doing, whether it actually means anything. You're doing the models, you design product, does it make a difference what we're doing? So that's a very big question about why. So to really transform organizations like SCOR, and also our part, I'm also CEO of Remark, which is the insurtech, global insurtech company owned by SCOR. We had to go pretty deep in terms of the purpose of what we're doing, why we're doing. And I tell you, like, we've been through the journey for 2 years. Initially, people just don't understand. I'm actually a pricing product. I'm an underwriter. I look at people's underwriting report, the medical report, decide what sort of premium I charge. So really go down to why. And through this journey, you start from self-reflection, who you are, what motivates you, and by creating a safe environment, creating really an environment, really drill down what we should be doing and why we're doing that. In the end, we think what motivates us is we think life is precious and we value life. End of day, we want to bring protection to people really in need. And if you turn that around, I was moderating a session yesterday, and I mentioned this. Insurance is associated with lots of unhappiness, but you turn this around. It's one industry actually hugely aligned with the individual's personal aspiration. Everyone wants right to live and live healthily. And guess what? Insurers really want our consumers to live and healthily and happily and have quality life. And if you through that angle, that's why you see, like including our organization, it's very clear we're investing in wearables, health and wellness, how to build preventative care to people instead of waiting passively to pay claim when they get ill, when they diagnosed with critical illness and get claims. So you really turn around the customer journey completely, and through that angle, how we organize ourselves, how we service our consumers. So it's a fascinating journey.
Sounds like you have a lot of job to do. Malcolm, SCMP is a 116 years old newspaper, and there's so many digital content right now in the market. And how did you move the newspaper forward to embrace the digital age? And I know one of the things that you did was also like remove your paywall as well. Maybe you can take it on from there.
Yeah, so SCMP, South China Morning Post, we're a 116-year-old company, newspaper of record based in Hong Kong. But since about 3 years ago, we got acquired by Alibaba, and we've changed our whole mission of the company from being a Hong Kong-focused company into a global media company. So our new mission is to lead the global conversation about China. So any sort of like news or not news, content in general about China, whether it's business, politics, all the way to food and travel and culture, that's what we cover. So with this new transformation, we're almost like 3 years into it right now, and we've had to start number one with culture and identity. For us to really be global and really transform ourselves, it really needs to start internally. So we had to redefine who are we. We had to redefine, what is it that we're trying to go after? What is our mission? What is our vision? And that also comes with our identity itself. So we changed our logo. We changed, what we stood for. And we even changed our office location in Hong Kong and consolidated. We previously had 3 separate offices in Hong Kong. We consolidated into one office. And so that is a physical representation as well. A lot of people don't really pay attention to that kind of stuff, but it does make a big difference. So first and foremost, definitely starting with culture, definitely starting with identity. Number 2 is focusing a little bit more on being more product-driven and being more user-centric. For a old school news media type of company, we don't really know what that means, right? Because prior to, say, the internet, we can basically rest on content and assume that content by itself is king, and we can assume that we just create content and people will read it. But today, that's very different, of course. Content consumption behavior is no longer just on a newspaper. A lot of people expect, and they actually want their news for a very specific type of format, a very specific type of context. For example, you might still get people that are checking a website on their desktop at work. You might also get someone else that prefers a 15-second vertical video, on so-and-so platform. Or there's people out there that get their news exclusively on just Twitter, exclusively on just Facebook. You might even get people that say, hey, I only want my news or my content on the way to work, from work, while I'm on the train, listening to some audio like Qlik. So all of these different formats, different contexts, we now have to think about. So we no longer can just write an article and then expect readers to consume it. We have to now think about, put ourselves in the shoes of those users and in the shoes of those consumers, and think about how are they actually consuming our content, and therefore how can I use all of those tools in my tool belt to tell the right story and to tell the story in the way that would resonate to the user. So I think that's the journey that we're sort of on, right? So initially starting with the culture and identity, but then really focusing on product, really focusing on technology, really focusing on the user, and really understanding how can we get our story out there, particularly for a global audience.
Was Alibaba's investment a big factor in pushing the transformation forward?
Sorry, second.
Was Alibaba's investment in the company, was it a big factor?
Yeah, for sure. We operate very independently, and being in Hong Kong, it's nice that we have one foot in the Western world and one foot in the Chinese world. But it's very important for us to obviously operate independently and for us to have that journalistic freedom. So if anything, Alibaba provides the financial resources for us to invest in these technologies, for us to invest in innovation, and for us to grow our teams to be able to do so. But actually, a lot of the technologies that they have doesn't really apply to us because we're English language. A lot of the infrastructure they have is built for China. It's built for e-commerce businesses. So it's not necessarily built for our type of business. So we do use a range of different technologies, whether it's AWS, whether it's Google, and what have you.
CK, you at Qlik, you advise clients on transformation and how to use data and analytics. What was Qlik's journey like? I mean, you have been around for a couple of decades, right?
Yeah, we are founded since 1997. So good afternoon. Hi. Probably I'll just give a quick introduction about Qlik. So a leading provider in software for data analytics. And we have been helping leading business across retail, insurance, even publications to really transform their business using analytics. Shawn, I think you raised up, how do we, as a software company, when we advise a client, how do we transform ourselves? So we face the same problems as our clients, right? The rising cost pressure, right? New breed of competition that's coming out. And if we don't transform ourselves, we could remain stagnant, or even worse, we're going that downward trend. So a couple of years back, we took a very strategic position by looking at how our customers at the market will be using analytical tools. And we decided that we should transform ourselves to be a SaaS-first company, software as a service company. And if you think about it, there's a lot of transformation work that is required in here. So most importantly, when we start to look at it, is the processes and the product and the technology we are selling, right? We have to transform ourselves to be cloud ready, which takes a big infrastructure changes. And again, what are the information or what are the data that we have? So at Qlik, right, we firmly believe that transformation is must, but it's data that makes it faster, right? And again, analytics is then becoming our guidehouse here. So I relate back to the example, right? How do we actually collect information from our customers in terms of innovation? So it's about building in telemetrics information, right? How people is using the chart, how people is using visualization, how much time they are spending, are they downloading things, from the analytical tool to spreadsheets like Excel to start using it. We want people to be able to be data literate and start using it. And secondly, you think about it, processes as well, processes and system, because as we transform ourselves to be a SaaS-based company, it means changing the billing systems. Right, we are now going for perpetual licensing to subscription pricing. And how do we go around changing our system? So we have in-house ERP system. How do we actually do that? And thirdly, if you think about it, people, right? People is the most important, right? Whether it's the people within our organization, our partners, right? How do we help them to transform through this journey? And now data analytics then become the lighthouse, as I mentioned earlier, for us to guide through this journey. So when the mission is set, I think Malcolm mentioned, it's very important to get the executive sponsorship in terms of how we want to transform ourselves and the plan to do it. And how do we actually track ourselves in each of these milestones is really important. So we do have a application, analytic application, that help us to track every single side of the journey. For example, when we talk about HR, right? How do we actually, in terms of the customer or the employee satisfaction, when we go through this journey? And over the years, as we grow through our portfolio, through acquisition, we're also onboarding new employees in our organization. How do you ensure they are onboarded? That's one. How's their feedbacks, right, from their line managers themselves and from peers, 360 view. And again, data is the piece that is actually tying back onto this. So one more point is, I guess as a software company, we're blessed to have the best software, right, to do the analytics upon. But we also quickly realized that it's not just the technology, it's the people, right? And this is where the data literacy bit comes in. So we are looking at different departments and we start to have all these champions. And I had a good chat, for example, with Wong, our HR, and he's leading the charge. And he's leading the charge in the sense that he's looking at a way as, how our customers is using HR analytics and he's applying back this self. And similarly, when he starts to look at how he's been using it, for example, in the way that we do recruitment, right? And the way to do recruitment these days is so much different, right? People don't just go to a newspaper that's 10 years back. The LinkedIn profiles and they go in and apply for a job, that changes a lot, right? There's a lot of networking involved, right? In terms of the time that people spend from, when the recruitment requisition goes out, to the time it was hired. How do you track this process? And then can you predict it? And that's where the element when we have champions like this in all this line of business starts coming together, and where we actually get a full visibility on how we are at that transformation journey.
Interesting you say it's not just about the technology and the people, and that's my next question to the rest of the panel. When you tell people about digital transformation, technology comes first to the mind, most of the time. So my question is technology the most important part of digital transformation, or is it just a small part of it? And like CK said, there's people, there's other aspects of your company.
Well, certainly technology is an important part of the digital transformation, and as many people or many organizations know, just to get top-level talent or technological talent is very, very difficult. You're competing with big tech, you're competing with startups, and if you want to do a digital transformation, you need people that know digital and know technology. However, even having the technology piece covered, I would say for companies that are undergoing more of a transformation where they were structurally traditional and try to fortify themselves into the future, the challenge is more around change management. Yeah, that means being able from at all levels of the organization, from board level to senior management level to the people on the ground, to be able to have an acceptance and even a desire for change, yeah? Because the way that we have been working in the last 30, 40 years, the processes that we have been using in the last 30, 40 years are not going to be the ones that will carry us into the future. And that actually requires a lot of changes, changing our business models, changing our job descriptions. Just imagine that, changing your job description, right? Changing the way that the organization communicates and works within the organization, yeah? And then changing the way that we do investments, yeah? So becoming much more risk-taking, being able to cannibalize ourselves. Everybody talks about it, but it's actually very hard to do. Cannibalizing yourself. You're making this much money with this much profit, and you're telling me I'm going to be doing something that's going to attack this thing? I mean, you really need to have some guts and some foresight, yeah? And to have that with a sustained amount of leadership, I would say is difficult. And this is why it doesn't matter whether it's a traditional company or a technology company. Once you are big, yeah, because you've gone through the phases of being scrappy startup and then already scaled up to be a multi-billion-dollar company, right? Once you are big, changing your ways to remember your early days on how you were actually fighting for every customer, actually fighting for every dollar and cent, right, takes an enormous amount of commitment and foresight. Yeah. So that is the critical part. Yeah. How can you have the leadership that drives the change management in the organization to stay the course on this journey? Yeah.
Nadia?
Sure. Technology, I think, is absolutely crucial. It's the reason we're sitting here talking and talking a new ecosystem emergence of innovation and new business cross boundaries, technology absolutely crucial. But I do agree, technology shouldn't be the only thing. It's, as a question actually raises, what kind of technology? Because the speed of technology advancements and pace of things changing, it creates lots of distraction as well and cause confusion. So I agree with this sort of change leadership or foresight, but how? It's easy to say like how to have leadership foresight, how to know where you should be, who you should be, and what you should be investing in. That's a very, very big question. So I personally really argue for, technology with a heart, or, without being a bit flippant about it, have a passion, exactly what you want to, what problem you want to address, what you want to solve. And with that technology, what's possible today in our industry wouldn't be possible. So I'll give you two examples. One, in Hong Kong, for people who survived the cancer, they typically cannot buy insurance. It's declined straight. You can't buy insurance anymore. But they do need protection. They're still living. They need protection. They need to support family, raise their children, and they want to live as healthy a life as possible. So there is a clear insurance need. So now the technology today is able to treat every case differently, to look at what sort of condition they've been through, what sort of treatment they have, and how we can create protection to those people. So we create the first cancer survival product in Hong Kong with Prudential. And it's something without what I've just said, those sort of technology wouldn't be possible. Another example is in China, we do work with WeChat, Tencent. We also work with Ali as well, because those platforms reach millions, or in WeChat case, billions alive. They have 1 billion active users. And a lot of them probably, I just raised some statistics for us. Like there's 200 million people in China with hepatitis B positive, the carrier. They do need to take medication to have their liver situation under control, otherwise develop into liver and cirrhosis, and it could be liver cancer and liver failure. It's a serious disease, but not everyone's disciplined taking pills, and how do that? The technology coming, how to target these people accurately. So we work very closely with a pharmaceutical company who produces sort of pills and bring the QR code and with WeChat platform, so people can scan and they get every pill they take, their insurance protection goes up. So there's an active engagement to help them take a pill. So I'm a big fan of technology, but I think technology with the right passion, with heart, is absolutely crucial.
Malcolm, what about you?
So at the end of the day, I think technology is a tool, right, in a sense. And so I would agree that, and going back to the point of starting with culture, it is really about the people and the people using the technology. So for us, for example, it is being more data-driven. It is providing everyone in the company with the tools to understand what's happening with our company, what's happening with our products, how our users are using those products. So it's making things more transparent, right? It's making data accessible to every single person, even if you're not a data analyst, if you're not a business analyst, if you're not an engineer. So all of our journalists, for example, are looking at dashboards. In fact, they have in the newsroom, there's TVs all across the entire room with real-time numbers about what's happening. That didn't happen. That didn't exist 2 years ago. And so that culture change of basically giving editors access to data, number one, but then teaching them how to leverage that data and use that data and actually change the way they write, change the way they create content based on that data. That's the culture shift. That's a mind shift that needs to happen. So I'd say with all corporations and all companies that are going through transition and this transformation, it has to start with the people. It has to start with the culture. I think a lot of companies make the mistake of seeing, oh, we have to innovate, we have to transform, so we'll hire a technology team, we'll buy all these tools, and then expect our company to transform. That's not going to happen, right? That's not the way to do it. And so you don't really start with the technology and that's it. You really need to start with the people and the culture and teaching them how to leverage tools like technology in order to transform themselves.
My next question is for Johnny and Malcolm. You guys are in a unique position where you have seen both sides of the business, in terms of you coming from Lazada and you coming from Lyft in the US. what sort of misconceptions that you see businesses have in general? Like when they see startups like doing very well or, pushing new products so fast, so quickly, what sort of misconceptions do you think that traditional businesses have?
So I was the chief product officer at Lazada, and of course, with the Lazada story, I was able to see probably a much faster way of operating, much more aggressive, and much more technologically enabled. Now that I'm at NTUC Enterprise, it's a very different world. Nevertheless, it still has very different challenges. Yeah, but I still remember coming in, and when I was first trying to help the organization understand what is the journey that we are about to embark on when we say about digital transformation. What does that mean, right? What does it mean that we are trying to become less disrupted? And so it was a lot about that education. And I had to put up slides that basically say that for us to be a digitally transformed organization, it's not about more apps. It's not about going paperless. It's not about going to the cloud. It's not about this and that other buzzword technology. Like today, there's blockchain, there's the, just because we can put up a press release saying that we're doing these things doesn't mean anything fundamentally to the organization. Yeah. So the first thing is looking at the key value proposition that we're offering to the end consumer. Are we able to provide a value proposition that will accompany the times with the consumer better than any other competitor? Yeah. So it's always going back to that sense. Okay. Then how do we compete with others that are smaller, that are scrappier? Well, there are many ways of competing. Yeah. And then first is around the mindset. Is that we don't have to be doing the 100%. We need to be able to take risks. We need to be able to do MVPs that are not going to have all the functionality that are existing in the current channels. But if we're able to prove the more fundamental hypothesis, if I launch this product, is this product going to actually resonate with the end consumer? Then we have the seed of success. Yeah, because that's what startups do. When they launch a product, when you think about Facebook, when they first came out, they didn't even have photos or video. It was just a status update. That was the MVP back then, only for students. Yeah. So can we do a seed of consumer-facing value proposition that will resonate? Yeah. And so that allows us to move fast. Yeah. And then make investments. And there's many other things. So we are competing against many startups, many other technology companies, right? And so we need to be able to put a lot of our arsenals, but not forgetting that at the end of the day, it's really about the end consumer, providing that value to the end consumer.
Malcolm?
Yeah, so as Shawn mentioned, prior to SCMP, I was in Silicon Valley working at Lyft, the ride-sharing company. So I would say the difference between going from a tech company into a more traditional company is really, again, so to echo what we've been saying, is to start with owning that culture of leveraging technology from the ground up, right? So I think it's really weird when I meet companies and organizations that have a separate digital team. Like Lyft didn't have a digital team because it was digital, 100%. So there's no label of digital. And Lyft didn't have an innovation team because everything they were doing was innovation. So I find it really weird when I meet companies, they say, we have an innovation team. I was like, what does that mean? So I think what we really need to do is you really want to transform. It has to start from the ground up. You have to start from zero and basically say, like, okay, what is it that you're really trying to accomplish? Put yourself in the shoes of a user. If you're trying to introduce a new product or you're trying to improve something and improve an existing product, how do you actually get that to fit with where the market is headed, right? And then arming people and teaching people, arming your employees and teaching your employees to basically do that better. So it's teaching them the new tools, it's giving them the data, it's giving them the new processes, it's making sure that they can experiment, making sure that they can fail often and fail fast, and iterate through that process. I think it's not enough to just say, okay, we have an innovation team, they're going to do all the cool stuff, the rest of the company is going to do whatever we normally do. I don't think that's going to work.
CK, when you meet clients, what's like the first thing they want from you that, it's a misconception that you have to advise them that they shouldn't be thinking this way?
So I mean, in my conversation, to be honest, a lot evolved around technology, and I try to pull myself out. I think we spoke a lot about the culture piece, and digital transformation, true enough, is a journey, right? Akin it to like running a marathon. It's never about a sprint. A lot of organizations, when we started digital transformation, almost the first few projects is, how do I make a more data-driven company? And this is where they start, I need to have a big data lake. I need to put all the data together. I'll try to buy tools, that are easy to use. And the whole notion is about technology, right? Yes, I think the people element is there. They identified the small teams. They identified champions. But where I often advise my clients, take a step back, right? Take a step back. Look at the people, right? So what I often advise them is this data culture, or what in Qlik we say is data literacy, right? If data literacy is the most important skill set that you have in the organization, what's your investment in that? In fact, in recent studies that we've shown, like 92% of decision makers say data literacy is the most important thing, but less than 1/3 is actually doing something about it, investing in it. Where we see data literacy is the ability for any individual, right? You want to read with data, you want to argue with data, you want to work with the data. That's involved a lot of skill sets. How you go around it, it's not just about a technology piece. That's why Qlik, we took this up, right? We created this new organization called the Data Literacy Project alongside partners like Accenture and Cognizant, and we produce, online learning software, even assessment. So I want to give a question. So how do you know the data literacy of an organization? Do you have an assessment tool to do that? So once you have an assessment tool, you understand individuals within the organization. And when we say individuals is, analytics is not just for the privileges, right? Or the dashboard. We often hear about executive dashboard. What are people on the ground? I think Malcolm saw about the editors. What about the insurance agent was running around? They all need data, but are they equipped with the skill sets in order to just not take what we call a descriptive, but take a diagnostic? What's the next best offer that I can give to my clients? And it all started with this culture. And back to Shawn, to your point, I often start at this point, and it takes them back, okay, right? And I start to go to the next step and say, okay, now look at the technology piece. If you're going to start with, say, a big data project, right? What's going to be your ROI for that project? It's not about putting all the data in terms of cost saving or TCO. It's the use case. How are we going to make use of this data to drive better business decision and outcomes? And then you look about how are you going to get the data out to the people, right? You want to make it accessible. I think Malcolm spoke about how to make it accessible because different people using it differently. So when Qlik, right, we take a very focus into this artificial intelligence, and we believe that it's not here to replace human. In fact, we call it augmented intelligence. It's here to augment human interaction and innovation. Can we make use of, for example, capabilities like, ability to actually, provide an insights. For example, you might mention, what's my sales for this month? And you have a bot to tell you that. And not just that, they actually give you the narrative, right? Do you know that you're on a downward trend? Right, that's just what Johnny says, right? For the first time on the 4 years, you go on a downward trend. You might be asking sales, but there's no context to that. And so that all comes in together where we have the people is really building up this data culture, data literacy within our organization. Look about technology, right? Look at the business outcomes that you want to drive that. And lastly, when you start to look at tools or platform from users, you want to choose something that actually help them to augment in terms of their decision-making process better. And all this sum up to really driving the digital transformation in an informed manner. Yeah.
What sort of transformation trend do you see coming up in the next year or even 5 years down the road?
Well, I would say the first one, I think that generally there's already the industry or industry-wide realization that to enable digital transformation and to be more agile, you need to develop your own internal capabilities to do so. Yeah. So in other words, not so much depend on third-party vendor providers or outsourcers, but in the areas where you need to differentiate for your end consumer, you need to develop those capabilities internally. You need to have your own group of product designers, product managers, mobile engineers, your infrastructure people that are actually going to be creating that. You need to work on your supply chain and make it more. But anyway, so I think this is something that generally more and more companies are doing that. So that's why the more traditional organizations, the banks, even the government, GovTech is one such example, right? So throughout many different industries, there's just a realization that they need to have their own capabilities to move there. Then I would say, you know, what technology, whether it's you know, the blockchain or AI, these are generally maybe secondary things. Yeah, secondary things. I would say that it's more around business models or overall macro. I don't know what would be the frameworks that would need to be impacting the various industries. So we've seen, you know, with Lyft, with Grab, right? There's the model of being able to leverage the end consumers themselves to provide those services. As a, you know, companies like Airbnb have popularized this, you know, the goods. So these are not perhaps not per se technological aspects, but these are new frameworks of how to do business. Yeah. So I'm sure that more and more there will be new such frameworks that will then pose the actual disruption. And the technology is just a way to fastly enable those new frameworks. Yeah. What new frameworks will come about? Who knows? Of course, there's the big looming threat of the full automation of the blue-collar workers with autonomous vehicles or with AI insurance or AI teaching or whatever, right? There's a lot of that. So when there's a threat or a potential problem, there's also an opportunity, yeah? And so how to take on that opportunity, how to have a little bit more foresight, how to respond to those threats, I think that will be trends that we'll be seeing in the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah?
I actually think try to look through the crystal ball to understand what's happening globally. You have to look at what's happening at the macro level, global level, consumer level. Okay, the millennials are very, very different from the Gen X or the boomers or, even older. It's very, very different. And there's some very big global trend in terms of aging society. So we're moving from a very high, high fertility rate, high younger population growth rate to people live longer, but the fertility rate is going down, and people there's a big aging society problem as well. Now on top of that, you have the geopolitical instability, everything. I do think we probably seen the best years in terms of globalization. But now you see the Uber exit China, Uber exit Southeast Asia. You have your own, like China had Didi, now Southeast Asia has Grab. So we're going to see more and more this sort of kind of very localized platform, but they all solve the same problem. Human beings have the same sort of fundamental problem, but try to find the right solution for that. You really have to invest pretty deeply in terms of who your customers are, and the final, all the final segmentation customer, really investing on understanding them and building platform that's designed for them. So I do think you're going to see less of this massive global platform just wipe everything off. You're not going to see, personal insurance in particular, you're not going to see the equivalent Airbnb globally. I can guarantee you that. But you're going to see successful, localized operation, understand the customer, bring the local solutions with the way local consumers understand and want to engage. That'll be my prediction.
Malcolm and CK, very quickly, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think from a trend perspective, about the industry 4.0 or the whole cloud adoption, when I see the trend for organization comes transformation is the agility, right? The learn fast, fail fast, right? I think today we are moving in a much faster world right now, and again in a world where data is actually growing and exploding in such a way, I think the focus is really back to the people themselves. How really people is not just consuming, but how people interact with the data and how we actually inform to help them run the decision. Because the whole concept of learn fast, fail fast is you are able, when you have set a milestone, you're able to monitor it through the entire journey, and you're able to tweak and adapt accordingly. And I think in the world that we're living now, we never know what's going to happen in the next 12 months, whether it's in the market, it's in the competition in terms of technology. So my advice, if a takeaway for everyone, is really invest in those agility thinking, and again, it must be enforced again by a very strong vision or innovation agenda that your company is having.
Do anybody in the audience have a question? Okay, so if there's no one, thank you, panelists. Hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you.